Have you ever wondered why they're called board meetings? Because they're boring. And you know the only thing that grows under boards? Worms. These are common, these are some jokes, these are some phrases. People think that board meetings and business meetings are a lot of bureaucracy. There's committees about committees and Robert's rules, and all these people have to go through jump through hoops and loops, and all these people that are not on board with what the ideas or real progress in a church or in an organization, and people get a bad taste in their mouth where they think that they don't like board meetings, they don't want anything to do with them. Today I've actually had a handful of meetings, business meetings that we have. Like in our business, we have once a month we get together, we have a monthly meeting where we plan out what we're going to do for the next 30 days and what our focus is. We call these monthly missions. But one thing I find is that not all business meetings are created equally. The way we do them are actually super engaging, really fun, and enjoyable. And it's amazing to be able to see the clarity, the mission, the drive that we're able to go forward. In fact, I actually invested in this program. There's this guy, he was making 8 figures in his company, and he runs multiple companies. And he has this meeting structure, James P. Friel, and he had this system for organizing or setting goals in an organization, whether you're working with a team in your ministry, a church, in a business, whatever organization that you are collaborating with people. I found that this system that we've adopted since a little bit after COVID has been amazing for helping us to be on the same page and communicating moving forward. It's really just a few simple things. Number one, we review what is our monthly mission. Like if we're meeting monthly, we're looking at what's our goals for the quarter. What is our, we like to call them quarterly quests. Like what are we trying to accomplish in the next 3 months? And then we remind ourselves of the bigger picture, and we also look at our vision. Like why are we here? And how, and this helps us to center more in on the exciting work that we get to do and helping equip health educators. And then afterwards, we look at what are some of the values that we have, that we value infinite development, leadership development. We value, um, we, as we go through these, it helps us to just maintain the culture that we want to create. And that is just the first like 3 minutes or so. But then afterwards, we talk about what progress was made towards last month's monthly missions, like the things that got done. And it's so amazing to take a moment with your team to look at who are the people's lives that have been impacted. A month ago, what was really just a dream or a vision or like an idea now is actually reality. And we like to ask a question like, okay, if we were going to stand 30 days from now and we were looking back and we're like, that was the best 30 days of our life or of our group, of our work, what would need to take place in order for us to say, whoa, we got 30 days closer to heaven. We traveled 30 days closer to our dream, to our goal, to our vision, to our collective objective. And then we make plans based on that. So we like to ask, uh, what progress have we made? And then we also ask, where do we need support to move forward? Because sometimes there's communication that we need from each other, whether it's clarity on a project. Like right now, we're working on publishing daily reels, and so who's doing what parts? Kamran helps with some of the titles and the descriptions. Kathy and Dakota, they're taking these long form videos and cutting them up into shorter ones. And then Shanicia, she schedules them, and I review them to make sure things are looking good. So we're communicating like where's the bottleneck, and in order to make this streamlined, what needs to take place, and who's waiting on who essentially. And that's extremely helpful. We're also working on creating some tutorials for our software clients as they are learning the software and figuring out what to do. I'm going to be creating more tutorials, but we need to make a list of what are the tutorials, which ones could we do, what's relevant for our clients. They're booking consultation calls, they are creating communities, they're learning how to use our mobile app to be able to make new sales and reach more people and schedule their social media content. So different things like that. But long story short, we figure out what progress have we do we need to move forward. I mean, what progress have we made this last month? Then we ask, where do we need support to move forward? And we find out with each of these monthly missions, what's the biggest bottleneck? What's the biggest problem? And what can we do to solve it? And I think that this is a really powerful question, because when you're asking, like, what's the one thing that I could do in the next 30 days? What's the one thing I could focus on? Such of by doing would make everything else easier and necessary. That is going to help give focus. It's called the focusing question from the book One Thing. It's really helpful, and we ask that in terms of like our quarterly quest of what we want to accomplish, and then that helps us to identify what the problem is, and then we look at we get together and we think of what could we do in a 30-day time frame. What could we accomplish realistically with our resources, with our time, with our manpower, with the finances, with like whatever it is that needs to take place? What can we focus on in the next 30 days so we're not scattered chasing shiny objects and trying to get lost by whatever piece of content like encaptures our mind or gives plants an idea. We're just like, this is for 30 days, this is the plan, this is the mission. And what's cool is that it brings all of our resources together. We're not all scattered going in different places like a donkey and an ox unequally yoked, where the oxen wants to pull and drag the donkey and the donkey wants to go back. We don't have any of that. We're able to combine, we're able to link arms together and run, sprint to the finish line, going from one glorious victory to the next. And it makes it so fun to be in an environment where we're actually reaching goals. Now, we don't always accomplish the monthly missions, but we make some serious headway because of this level of intention and this level of decision. In fact, Jesus said in Luke 14 that no man having intending, there's that word intention, to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost to see whether he has sufficient to finish it. So that counting the cost is basically what we do. It's like, do we have the time, the manpower, and what is it going to take? So we got a plan. And Jesus is showing that if success in any line requires a definite aim. And if we don't have a definite target, a goal, or a milestone, then fuzzy targets don't get hit. Can you imagine being blindfolded and doing archery and trying to like shoot a target? That's how a lot of people go throughout life, or through their business or in their ministry. It's an aimless life is a living death. It doesn't make sense. And Proverbs says that without a vision, the people perish. And I believe it's important to have a vision for our health, a vision for our relationships, a vision for our ministry, our work, our calling, a vision for our finances. Just have a vision for our family, even for our spiritual growth. Because if we don't have a vision for where we want to be 30 days from now, then how are we actually going to arrive at a destination that we desire? Because one thing that I've realized is that all of us are going to arrive somewhere. All of us are going to arrive 5 years from now. But the question is, are you going to arrive at a destination you desire, or are you going to drift to that destination 5 years from now? Because rarely do people drift to a destination that's enjoyable, that's loving, it's exciting, that's appealing. We don't just accidentally fall into our dreams. We have to make that decision, and we can design the destination that we want to go to. We can open the Word of God and say, Lord, what would you have me to do? And based on what God's vision is, we can carry that out. I like to call them these God-given goals, because God gives us commands. Every command contains or implies a promise. All of his biddings are enabling. So we look at, like, what does God tell us to go do? And that becomes the goal. That becomes the vision. That becomes the mission to go work towards. And when we do it in these 30-day sprints, it's really powerful, because you can, Luke 16:10, it says, he that is faithful in that which is least will be faithful also in much. He that is unjust in that which is least will be unjust also in much. So, in other words, one of the principles I see with this is we have like these top three, we call them weekly wins. So every week we like to identify what are the weekly wins that we're going to do. And on Monday, we get together and we're like, all right, just real quick, let's recap the past week. What went well? What needs improvement? Where do you need support? Boom, got it done. Good. And like, what are your 3 weekly wins? And these weekly wins is basically, if there's 3 things that we're going to get done in the next 7 days, if these 3 things were the primary things that got done, what three things would need to happen in order for me to say I won my week? Because here's the thing: if you can win the week, you can win your month. If you can win the month, you can win the quarter. If you can win the quarter, you can win the year. If you could win the year, you could win a decade. You could win your life, year by year, going from one glorious victory to the next. And in Romans 8:37, it says, "In Christ we are more than conquerors." We don't have to go with our head low and as defeated along this journey. We can go conquering into conquering, from one glorious victory to the next, from strength to strength, as a psalmist says. So, and I believe part of the way to do that is by being intentional and just like putting some plans and cooperate with God. And then at the end of our monthly missions, we lay our plans at God's feet to be given up or carried out as His providence should indicate. It's a very prayerful process. You know, for many years, I thought that, um, wait, someone says, what are some daily routines? I missed it, but it popped up. That was really cool. I like how that showed up. So I saw part of the question was, what are some daily routines that we could follow? I think one is this process of like, in the evening you could review what the day is, because what I'm sharing about looking at what progress was made, where do we need support, and what's like the biggest bottleneck, and what are we going to do next. I think this could be done in like micro moments. We could do it daily, and it could take maybe 5-10 minutes and just review the next week. Look at number one, I say that like have a calendar. Using a calendar makes a huge difference. And like when scheduling things or making a call or making an appointment, it's just like look at a calendar, have it. And that's been really helpful. I call it a success schedule. I thought for many years that a calendar would restrict me, but I learned from Brendon Burchard that the calendar is my freedom, is what he said. And I thought that was the strangest thing, because I'm like, how does a calendar give you freedom? It seems like you'd be restricted. But actually, that I was listening to something today. There's a guy who was talking about his date night with his wife, that they wanted to do it weekly. Um, yeah, Shanicia is on here saying that I used to not like scheduling things, but calendars really set me free. It's true. She was one of the people who really didn't think that calendars were going to help, but she started to use a calendar, and now she's able to be far more productive. Not only our team, but even people outside of the team. They're like, "How does Shanicia get so much done? She's able to carry so many responsibilities." And in fact, some people like they look at our team and they see the things that we're able to do with a small group Bible studies, with the church, with their business, with the clients, with the content consistency, and they're just like, "How do you guys do it all? You guys are involved in so much." And it's because we have a success schedule, and the success schedule is powerful because it doesn't care if you are emotionally drained, or how you're feeling, or if you're exhausted, or if you're tired. It's just like when you schedule to do something, then you're able to follow that. And we have times where we have systems and regularity. I think another daily habit that was in the question, I see that, like, okay, so the exact question was, what are practical daily routines that I can follow to accomplish my goals without procrastination and failure in the middle of the journey? I think that's a fantastic question. Um, so one thing that is helpful is just having regularity. Is really key. Even like daily practices is understanding what kind of tasks are high energy, like they require a lot of energy. It's like creative work. I call this like maker time, where you're creating something, maybe creating content, or maybe you're thinking through something, planning out something. It depends on kind of what your work is, as what your maker is. If you're writing books, then it's like writing. If you are um, doing that type of work, the creative work usually takes more energies, and understand where are you the most creative? Where do you have the most energy? Is it in the morning? Some people are more creative in the evening. It's just like knowing what's best for you, your team, your family, whoever you're cooperating with. That's helpful. And then there's manager time. Manager time are usually like conversations you're having with people, the text messages you send out that you need to communicate. Where do you need support? It's that interacting, like who are you waiting on and who's waiting on you. These are things that are very helpful to understand, because I don't believe there's no such thing as a self-made success. There's only a team-made success. Everything meaningful that we've ever accomplished is going to be in cooperation with at least two or more people. So learning to cooperate with people is really powerful. That's a daily habit that I think is very helpful. And um, and so in dealing with meetings, what I was talking about is that, and you can let me know too if that answered your question, but I found that our monthly meeting this morning was really fun, really good. And then also for the church, we had a business meeting, and it's interesting because most people think of business meetings as boring and dry and just like, oh, I don't want to be a part of that. But what's cool is with our church, I've been very intentional about conducting it in a way where it's very evangelism driven, it's outreach oriented, it's focused on, like, what's so exciting is that it's not just we come together, talk, and have some different ideas. We actually get to start again. It's the same questions, like, what progress did we make this month, and where do we need support to move forward, and what is the biggest problem that we could solve, and then what are we going to plan on doing next month. But it's so cool to see like something that was a vision before, like we needed a new door because our building kind of looks more like there was a comment, there was a bad comment on Google review. They're like, oh, I couldn't tell if this was a church, it looked like an industrial building and there's no obvious sign. We're like, okay, well, let's, I'm not afraid to take some like criticism, even if they were not even in the right spirit, but let's take some insight from it. So based on this bad Google review, what could we do to make our church be more friendly, inviting? And maybe it's signage, it's saying, hey, welcome, you found a church. Maybe it's switching the door that we have. So in one of our business meetings, we're like, let's get a different door. And they came in, actually, quick testimony, we were going to buy a door, or there's a specific door we wanted to replace. It's like $5,000 or so. And then the doctor that we're renting the building from, this used to be like a Lutheran church, but we're renting from this doctor, and he found out we wanted to get a different door, and he bought the door. So he bought our front door, and he wanted it to be like kind of like the doctor's office that he had, which is nice. They were glass wood doors, and we were just like, praise God, because the money we were going to pay for the door, now we could put it in the sanctuary and replace a different door. So God provides. But what's so cool is just today it was installed. It arrived and it was installed. But this was an idea that came in one of the business meetings, and there's a we got a new outreach coordinator who's going to be helping with the church. Diana is really good with events. She worked with our ministry a few years ago when I was pastoring the church before. But I'm really looking forward to that because she has a heart and a burden for seeking the lost. Keep her in your prayers. She's got she's been looking for a place to belong and a place to have her talents. And I really believe that each person, we learn to thrive tremendously when we get to use our talents for something, when we have a role and a part to play. People thrive in that. But when we're just sitting in the pews warming the seats and not using our gifts, and we feel miserable, we wonder like, where do we fit, what do we do? So that's something. But I really believe that when business meetings are done correctly, they don't have to be boring, they don't have to be dry, they don't have to be exhausting or going through hoops. It's something that can be really empowering. And what I've learned too is that even if people are being critical, or sometimes people have some like cuckoo kind of ideas of what to do, and and there's a lot of great ideas. But what I do is if someone wants something to go forward, I'll just say like, hey, is that, if God is putting that on your heart, is that something that you would like to do? Because what I've learned is that a lot of times when people are giving like criticism, that hey, the church needs a website, we don't have a website, it's like, oh, is that something that, like, I don't know how to do a website, is that something you know how to do, would you be interested or willing to put together a website? Then a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't, yeah, I guess I could do that if you're okay with that. And then we get a website, and it's something amazing that could happen. But a lot of times people get critical and they say things because the level of which something's being done is not as high as their talent allows, and because God has gifted them in this thing, they see that it could be better because God's putting the burden, the calling on their life to make it better. But a lot of leaders don't recognize that is God's gifting that is speaking out to them, and so they get defensive, and they feel attacked. I don't think it's an attack. I think a lot of times it's revealing of who of the gifts that they have. And a lot of people, they just need permission. They need authority to say, hey, I would love to give you the resources to make that happen. What do you need? I would love to support you in doing that. And then other times people are like, the kids need to be quieter in the church. Like, oh, do you have a suggestion of how to help them? Or like, what can we do? And they're like, no. It's like, do you want to help be a part of the solution? They're like, oh, no, they just need to stop. It's like, okay, well, we're going to work with what we have. And I understand some of the children are not used to being in church. They've never been in church. We can praise God. That is their first time. But yes, we are working towards that, and that we are making efforts for it. If you got a suggestion, we're all open for it. But if you don't want to be a part of the solution, then there's only so much we can do with that. And I believe that it's important to reward solutions, solution oriented people, and give people the ability to carry out these things. And together, we will always accomplish so much more together than we ever would apart. So today, what I want to talk about was just business meetings and working together, and that system of asking like, what went well today, or what went well this week, or what went well this month. Like, hopefully you could see in these different time frames the same system applies. Then you can ask, where do I need support to move forward? And then you can ask, what's my biggest problem, such that by solving would make everything else easier and necessary. And then you can plan, what am I going to do during this next time frame? Whether it's in a day, what am I going to do tomorrow? If it's in a week, what am I going to do next week? If it's in a month, what am I going to do next month? And by having these like monthly goals, oh, I cannot tell you how much you can move forward. Like a couple days ago, I said the video was, I feel like I'm living a fairy tale. And I really believe that, because literally the life, the schedule, the people, it all was a dream that I wrote down on paper a few years ago. And it probably took about 5 years to finally get to this point. But that was like 2018, 5 years later. And it was, but it started by this kind of system of making progress, and reviewing, and really not just saying what's missing and what needs to be fixed and what we're doing wrong, but by collecting, like, cultivating an attitude of gratitude. You want to know another practice that will help you to create momentum? See, momentum is a feeling of forward progress. We feel momentum by perceiving progress. And so the very act of appreciating and recognizing the progress will create forward progress. It will prevent failures. When we focus on our faults, our failures, our miscomings, our shortcomings, and what we are doing wrong and what needs to be improved, that's not how we grow. I was coaching a leader about a couple of years ago, and they're like, what am I missing? What's going on? I'm like, you need awareness. And she's like, well, I'm aware of my faults. I have awareness. I know that I'm not doing things right. I'm like, no, you have awareness on your weaknesses. What I'm saying is, you need awareness of your strengths. You need the great clarity of, what do you do well, and what are the great traits that you have and the qualities that you have. She felt like she was failing and falling short and wasn't doing anything right. And that really hit her, because she's like, yeah, I focus on my failures. That is not how we succeed. Success does not build on the foundation of failure. Only failure stacks on failure. Success builds on the foundation of success. So I call this success stacking. And it's a practice where you can make a list of what are 10 things that you're grateful for. What's 10 things that have been making progress. You do it at the end of the day. I give people a 90-day challenge, gratitude challenge, where at the end of each day, you make a list of 10 things that you're thankful for, and you never repeat any of those things more than once. So by the end of 90 days, you've got 900 things that you're grateful for. I did that in 2018 when I started my first business, and some of my John and Kathy, some early business mentors of mine, they introduced me to this 9-day gratitude challenge, and it changed my life. I've never been the same before. And even after 90 days, you will never look at life the same again. You will have this attitude of gratitude, and it shifts the way that you look at things. And the failure, the shortcomings, the faults, the finding, and they just like start losing their power, and you gain momentum that doesn't slow down. That is a daily practice that makes a huge difference too. But I just want to encourage you, friends, that that the future can be as bright as you allow it to be, and to don't give up hope. And sometimes when the world seems like it's falling apart, when the you may feel like you don't really have the support yet. Know that, like, I believe in the calling that God has for you, and that by being able to follow the Bible, following God, and trusting Him with your life, the safest and happiest place we could ever be is in the will of God. I get really excited when I talk about these things because I've lived it, I've experienced it, and I've struggled to believe that the future could be brighter for so long. But by studying these biblical principles, it makes a huge difference. And I want nothing more for you to be living fully in the calling that God placed upon your life. And I'm gonna keep posting some of these videos. Let me know in the comments if there's other questions you guys have. Maybe I could do a Q&A session one of these days, and we could just address a few questions. But until next time, remember, friends, God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the called. Have a great day, and God bless.